It used to be thought that the only way to create a beautiful garden was to suppress or tame nature. More and more of us are realising that if we work with nature, we can get it to do a lot of the hard work for us. There's a national obsession with encouraging bees to make their homes in our garden, and quite rightly so. We rely on them as pollinators, but also they make the garden a more lively place. There is so much to encourage us to help the bees out in our garden. There are all sorts of books and habitats, but the best thing we can do is provide them with a source of food by planting the right plants in our garden. Now, bees need food all year round. It's very easy to get it right in the summer months when pretty much everything is a source of nectar for the bees. What we need to concentrate on is filling in the gaps throughout the rest of the year so that the bees can make a permanent home in our garden. One of the best plants for this is the cowslip. Very common looking plant, but a really beautiful spring addition. Nice little burst of yellow. The traditional primrose is also another good source of nectar. Another great spring plant we'll all recognise is blossom. In fact, anything, including apples that are part of the rose family, will be a perfect pollen provider for the bees. So it could be a crabapple, it could be an apple, it could be a quince. It doesn't really matter, they all do the same job. Bees love blue, so the more blue you can get into your garden, the better it is for bees. They'll naturally home in on any plants that are blue, so it's an easy one to spot. Something like this bugle is ideal. It's spring flowering, so it's a good source of nectar when there isn't much around for the bees. You can also go for something bigger with blue flowers, something like the ceanothus. This one is a spring flowering shrub, but you can get ceanothus that flower right through until the autumn, so you've got plenty of options. When you're planning your planting, it's best to plant in quite big blocks so the bees can spot the nectar-rich plants as they navigate around the countryside. The best thing you can do is provide a variety of plants, but do try and keep them in these big blocks so it's easy for them to see what they're after. Once you're confident with the plants and you've provided plenty of food for the bees, you might want to think about inviting them to stay. The simplest way you can do this is by leaving a patch of bare earth in your garden, because a lot of bees like to burrow in the ground. You can also get a lot of commercially available bee habitats. Some of them are as simple as some bee pollinating tubes, which just provide a nice hollow for the bees to nest into. Alternatively, there are beautiful things like the ceramic bee nester, which would look fabulous nestled in amongst the plants in your border. If you're interested in encouraging honeybees, you might want to go slightly bigger and go for a full-blown hive. It's not just the bees we need to think about, there are all sorts of beneficial insects we want to encourage into our garden. Ladybirds are a prime example. They really need somewhere dry to shelter from the extreme weather in the winter, and something like this ladybird and insect nesting tower is an ideal habitat for them. Alternatively, why not consider leaving some of your perennials in your borders and cutting them down in the spring? That will give them a little bit of shelter to hide in from the worst of the weather. Something like this pollinating bee log is another lovely example. It's been created out of a hollowed out log which you can hang in a tree or a shrub, and it's just got these pollinating bee tubes in, which we looked at earlier. Again, this is a lovely habitat for mason bees, but also for things like ladybirds and maybe even sheltering lacewings and butterflies in the winter. Birds are a lovely thing to see in the garden, and they can help us with a lot of our chores, dealing with a lot of the pests and beetles. We want to encourage them to make a home in our garden, and so a bird's nest is a great thing to consider. Some of these birds' nests have been designed for particular birds. You can see from the size of the hole, this nest has been designed for the smallest birds, something like the tits. Those nests with a bigger hole will be designed for bigger birds. It's that simple. There are even habitats for hedgehogs who will snuffle around and eat up some of the beetles we don't want in the garden, or lovely bat boxes you can pop on a tree. In fact, my favourite one is over here. It's called the Hoggetat. It's been created so that it blends in with the garden surroundings, and it's perfect for sneaking in under a hedge or a shrub where it really won't be an eyesore at all. So really, whatever wildlife you want to encourage to your garden, there is a habitat available for it, whether it's bees, butterflies, ladybirds, bats, birds or hedgehogs. You'll be able to find something to help it make a home in your garden. So by working with nature and giving it a little helping hand, not only will it be good for the environment, but there'll be beautiful things to look at and your garden will flourish.